Hi. We're from Bettles in Evansville. We watch Heartbeat Alaska.
We love to watch Heartbeat Alaska. Really good film.
Hello, Daney Green. We love you. TV.
Yeah, I really like it.
Really good.
Heartbeat Alaska is made possible by the following. By Coca-Cola, serving Alaskans quality soft drinks since 1937. By Cook Inlet Region Incorporated, an Alaska Native corporation promoting economic and social progress for people throughout the state.
And by the Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute, educating consumers and promoting sales of Alaska seafood throughout the U.S. and in international markets.
There's a heartbeat, louder than thunder. Revolution is in the air. There's a heartbeat deep inside our mother. Are you too cool?
Hello, welcome to Heartbeat Alaska. I'm Jeannie Green, bringing you Native news and Native entertainment. Hello to our viewers in Montana, and hello to our viewers in North Carolina. We're so glad to have you with us. On today's program, we travel to Bettles, Alaska, a very interesting Native village. We promised you last week that we'd be going to Galena for the Yukon Jamboree. We're still waiting for the video, but they promised us it'd be here, so we'll promise you next week.
And today we also look at a segment of a documentary called More Than Words about the last Eyak speaker in the world, Marie Smith.
All that plus much more, but first, here's Gary Fife with Native news across the nation.
This is Native News Across the Nation. I'm Gary Fife. The upcoming convention of the Alaska Federation will be tackling some tough issues with an emphasis on sovereignty, subsistence, and jobs. The approximately 4,000 delegates who come to the convention can be expecting to discuss those subjects, plus more Native political activity as the convention begins. President Julie Kitka says one of those discussions will be the always divisive issue of rural subsistence preference. On the sovereignty question, more villages are pushing to expand their governmental powers to bring them in line with Native governments in the lower 48 states. In last year's AFN convention, delegates voted to endorse political candidates for the first time. That's a trend that will continue, Kitka says. The two-day AFN convention begins, the 4-day AFN convention begins October 19th in Anchorage, Alaska. Although high-stakes gambling has filled the treasuries of many tribes across the nation, not all tribes are happy with the scheme. In fact, in Washington state, tribes are split over the issue, which is to appear on a state ballot on November 7th. A state measure would allow unrestricted gaming on reservation lands, but that's a proposition that is flawed, say a coalition of 4 tribes, and more are expected to join their point of view, they say. But 5 other tribes say they'll support the state initiative. Tribal governments will be consulted in decisions and programs under the Endangered Species Act. This fall, a new federal policy was adopted allowing for consultation with tribal governments in all aspects of the act. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced that the agency will consult and use the expertise of tribal governments in determining which species should be listed, on surveys of those species, and the implementation of conservation measures. 12 tribes in the Rocky Mountain region are already pursuing plans to govern some fish in their reservation waters. The latest effort by the Turner Broadcasting Network, a feature film on the life of famed Lakota warrior and leader Crazy Horse, has met with continuing opposition from some members of the Lakota community, and it could wind up in court. Indian Country Today reported that protesters have showed up at the location saying the script is wrong, that Native extras have been mistreated, and that the famous warrior's name is being exploited. The producers say they've been open to meetings with individuals concerned about the film, that it did not distort the life of Crazy Horse, and that they would not stop production. And finally, for those who have dealt with or are now dealing with the heartache of alcoholic parents, there's an upcoming national convention on the subject to help them. It's the 7th convention of the National Association of Native American Children of Alcoholics, beginning November 5th in Spokane, Washington. The theme this year is The Healing Journey, Renewal for the 7th Generation. Organizers say they want to acknowledge the experiences of the past 7 generations of Native peoples and renew health and wellness among Native individuals. For more information, contact the National Association of Native American Children of Alcoholics at 800-322-5601. And as always, if you have information on your Native group or tribe, please share it with us. Put Heartbeat Alaska on your mailing list. And for Heartbeat Alaska, this is Native News Across the Nation. I'm Gary Fife.
They go fast and they're going fast. The biggest selection ever of new Polaris snowmobiles is now available at Alaska Power Sports, but you must shop early. Alaska Power Sports announces our Polaris Fund Dividend Program. Your first check counts for $1,100 on a new 96, and the remaining checks count as $1,000 each. Alaska Power Sports has the largest supply of Polaris parts in the state, and we ship COD to the bush every day. So call Alaska Power Sports at 1-800-478-0500. Alaska Power Sports is the largest Polaris dealer in the world. Alaska Power Sports means Polaris.
I'm going to tell you a story about how a woman learned from the raven. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, there lived a woman in a village. In the early spring, when fish came back to the rivers, everybody usually moved their families to the fish camp. So early one morning, everybody got up and left. When this woman woke up, she was all by herself. So she ate, laid back down. Caw, caw, she heard. She was dreaming about the raven. So she got up and she went out, and there was the raven. Only this time he was big. Come with me, he said. So she climbed on his back, and away they flew. They flew down to the river, and she saw fish. The raven showed her how to make a trap out of the willows, and he showed her how to catch fish. He showed her how to clean and cut the fish with a sharp stone. Then she cut all the fish like the raven showed her how to do. She worked all summer until her smokehouse was full.
I love that story because it has such a wonderful ending, as you'll soon find out, and because it captures the spirit of Alaska Native women, strong, nurturing, and loving. Today, Alaska Native women face very different challenges than they did in the old days. For example, there's no word in most of our traditional languages for cancer, yet today, breast cancer is something that all Alaska Native women must think about. While there's not much we can do to prevent breast cancer, there are things we can do to find breast cancer early and increase our chance of living long, healthy lives. There are 3 steps that a woman can take to find breast cancer early. First, monthly breast self-exam. Second, a yearly exam by a healthcare provider. And third, regular mammograms. Breast self-exam is a technique that a woman can use to potentially even save her life.
When the people came back, they saw this woman sitting there feeding the raven some dried fish. They looked in her smokehouse, and the smokehouse was full of fish, all drying for winter. And they were very happy that the woman had learned from the raven. As time went on, the woman passed on all that she had learned from the raven. Taking care of yourself, staying strong, and helping others.
Alaska Native women today have the same strength, courage, and spirit of survival as the woman in the story. Taking care of ourselves and our bodies is just part of staying healthy. When we follow these 3 steps, a monthly breast self-exam, a yearly breast exam by a healthcare provider, and a regular mammogram, we give ourselves the gift that no one else can, the gift of health.
It's been called a global catastrophe. Native languages all over the world are disappearing at an alarming rate. In Alaska alone, 18 of the 20 languages spoken here could disappear within our children's and grandchildren's lifetime. In fact, the Eyak people now have only one full-blooded speaker left, 77-year-old Marie Smith. Last summer, filmmaker Laura Bliss followed Chief Smith back to her childhood home in Cordova, Alaska, where she presided over a potlatch, the first potlatch in 80 years for the Eyak people. This Tuesday here in Anchorage, Alaska, the film More Than Words will premiere as a benefit for the Eyak Language Recovery Project. In the clip we're about to see, Chief Smith and a childhood friend visit the gravesite of the Eyak ancestors whose bones were returned from the Smithsonian last year.
AM 1450 KLAM in Cordova, your hometown voice in Prince William Sound. J.R. Lewis here, glad to be with you on this beautiful morning, and it's going to stay that way too. Partly cloudy today, high around 70. Great day to set up a great event, the first potlatch for our Eyak people in like 80 years, I think, going on at the old Orca Cannery.
If they caught us talking our own language, sometimes we had to go out in the woods and get our own switch, and they'd switch us with it. Or either take a ruler and hit our hand. And I don't mean little love pats. I mean real hurting.
After school, I'd go home, and Mom and Dad always talked our language. If it wasn't for that, I would not know any of my language.
My Eyak name is Udach Gokhaach, which means a voice that draws you. Sometimes when you're out in the woods, you hear something, a little bird that you never heard before. Naturally, you're going to go toward it and see what bird that is. That's a voice that draws you.
Well, Marie, that was
School's out.
School's out. Yeah. Well, did you come and have recess over here then on the ballpark?
Oh, we had wonderful time.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, we played all around there on the stands and everything.
If I can go back to my childhood and know what I know now, it'd be wonderful. I'd give anything to turn the time back. I think back to our own village, our little old community there, especially before I had to start going to school. Those are the times that was wonderful.
This is the original. Eyak Indian grave saw.
We were just never fighters. We don't like to fight. It hurts me on what I have to do now in order to get our ancestral grounds and everything back.
And looking across there really makes me sad. Where that lost trailer is, is where our house used to be. And this was a sad moment, and yet it was a happy moment.
Who was he?
That we don't know.
Oh, you don't?
No. I got a vision night before we were supposed to rebury him. That he was a healer in his time. And I believe the problems we're having now, God left him there for the time when we was going to need him. So he has come back to heal the Indian people.
Wonderful, just wonderful. Well, I think it's time that I better get home.
I gotta hold you, dear.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Whatever, we'll go down together. We're down together here in a long time.
This wasn't here when it was here.
Oh, wasn't it? Oh. Well, thank goodness it isn't blacktop. Well, when we were kids, we'd come down here, and Mrs. Buell from Denmark, she knows Dr. Craig.
All proceeds from the benefit will help continue the documentation of the Eyak language. In fact, on November 4th in Cordova, the Eyaks have already scheduled their first ever language recovery workshop. And the premiere, once again, is set for this Tuesday here in Anchorage, Alaska at the Performing Arts Center. You can order tickets toll-free by calling 800-478-7328. Please attend. It's for a really good cause. Let's travel now to Bettles, Alaska, right next door to the native village of Evansville.
Hannah Anderson was born in Old Bettles, located 5 miles downriver from present-day Bettlesfield, Alaska.
What I remember about Old Bettles was kind of a mining, old-timers place, I always call it. Mining, supply the mining camps up, mining areas up around above Bettles, up the Wild River, John River, Wiseman. Stern wheelers used to come up there and that far, as far as Old Bettles, and unload their supplies for the winter for the mining people. And when I first started to remember Bettles, I always saw it as a little kind of like a western town. Buildings with square fronts and horse barns and blacksmith shops and roadhouse, trading post, gardens, just like a little, well, remind me of a western town that you see in movies nowadays.
Hannah Anderson is at the Baskin. Her childhood memories are filled with the hustle and bustle of gold mining activity. At one time, Bettlesfield, Alaska, was the center of transportation, an important hub for the newcomers, gold miners, and others who followed. Today, Bettlesfield has a population of just over 60 people. Around 20 or 30 of those people are natives.
My name is Phillip Anderson. I work for Evansville Tribal Council. We're a little village located next to Bettlesfield, 35 miles north of the Arctic Circle, and at the foot of the Brooks Range, right along the Kaikouk River. Currently running a housing project for the Tribal Council, trying to get some homes for our elders and our youth so that we don't lose people from the village anymore, and so that our elders are taken care of and living in warm homes instead of substandard housing.
Years ago, the native people in this area migrated from the Kobuk Valley and settled in what is now called Bettlesfield. And that was before Gordon Bettles renamed the area.
Bettlesfield was created because they needed a runway back during the old days for during the wartime. And they selected this spot because it sits up on a high riverbed, old riverbed. Old Bettles was created because of all of the mining and trapping that was going on in the area back in the early 1900s. And Old Town was, or as we call it, Old Town, was the distribution point and stopping point. It was the furthest point north on the Kyacook River that the stern wheelers, paddle wheelers, could come up. My grandfather, David Tobuck, ran one of the paddle wheelers back then. He was the captain on there. And they used to bring goods up for the miners that were in the outlying areas: Wiseman, Tramway Bar, John River, the Wild River.
The village of Evansville was founded by the efforts of Chief Rhoda Mauser around the beginnings of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, choosing to claim village status rather than members of the 13th region. Today, the Evansville Tribal Council are the owners of more than 65,000 acres of land because of her efforts. Still, the struggle to hold on to Native traditions continues. Florence and Wallace Nectoon have 8 children who, as adults, have chosen to live elsewhere. And that brings a new dilemma. Bettles School, in order to stay open, needs to have 9 or more students, and currently they have only 8. But that only presents a new challenge for the residents of Evansville. They have a tradition of fighting for what they want. They got their land, and most likely they'll keep their school.
Hi. Hi, Mom.
I just received an interesting press release. For the first time ever in history, there is going to be a National Day of Prayer. This will take place on November 18th, which coincides with the U.S. government's National Native American Recognition Day. What better way to recognize our Native people than to pray for them? This will happen simultaneously across North America. The times are beginning at 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific time. Once again, that's the National Day of Prayer. Include Heartbeat Alaska in your prayers, won't you? Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us again for Native News and Native Entertainment. I'm Jeannie Green, looking forward to visiting you again next week. Tune in, won't you? I'll see you then.
My heart can sing when I pause to remember a heartache here is but a stepping stone along the trail that's winding always upward. This troubled world is not my final home, but until then my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy I'll carry on until the day my eyes behold that city, until the day God calls me home. Things of earth will dim and lose their value if we recall they're borrowed for a while, and things of earth that caused our hearts to tremble, remember a prayer will only bring a smile. But until then, my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy I'll carry on until the day my eyes behold that city, until the day God calls me home.